Toronto FC and Argonauts president Bill Manning is out. Parted ways. I thought I was intrigued by the verbiage there, but parted ways with MLSC, and they cited going a new direction and that being required. So your initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I just was sort of jogging my memory on Manning's resume during his time with MLSC. And if you look in the present, what have you done for me lately would be the mentality of Keith Pelly. TFC hasn't made the playoffs in MLS since 2020. Argos are 2-2 in the CFL. But these are two franchises that won championships during Manning's tenure, right? So TFC goes all the way in 2017. Argos won it in 2022. So to me, if you're Brendan Shanahan, for example, if you're looking at the message that sends, you're walking away from a team president that oversaw two championships in two different sports during his tenure. That to me implies, okay, we want to have a higher standard. If that's not good enough, then what does it say about the Leafs, who have one playoff series win since 2004?
One playoff series win under the helm of Brendan Shanahan in a decade. And that leads me to the next question about Shanahan. They're really mum on his contractual status, but it sounds like this year he's done either way. So I think we're going to have a conclusion one way or another, whether it's extending him or Shanahan's going to ride off into the sunset. But you're so right. If you're setting that track record, then this guy's job should be conceivably on the line, no?
I think it has to be. And I think the Leafs, they're kind of lucky in a way that they don't really have to make that decision because of what we understand about Brendan Shanahan's contractual status. So I believe it was a 6-year deal. Any digging around I've done, I'm pretty sure that it is ending. The contract is ending after this season. So you're in a situation where you can just choose not to renew it if you've decided that he hasn't gotten the job done. Or after 11 years, if he decides, I think I've had enough being in the fishbowl and the pressure cooker, it could play out that way as well. So it'll be interesting to see. And for me, the question, I'm sure it's the question for you, is just what does Shanahan, what does his version of the Leafs need to do this season to keep that job if he wants it?
Well, of course, I think the big story here is the fact that he's going to live by the core four and die by the core four. Like you, I've been doing a lot of digging over what's transpired the last couple of years. And the one thing that's been consistent from people I talk to, Brendan Shanahan has not want to split up these four guys. Like, I know the conversation was there last year with Kyle Dubas. I'm led to believe it was Kyle Dubas heavily in favor of making a significant change, whereas Shanahan was sort of on the fence. I think there was obviously a power struggle there, and that's why Kyle Dubas is no longer with the Maple Leafs organization. It's just really, really fascinating because he has been a believer, he being Brendan Shanahan, since day one, that it can work. You just need cracks at it. It's similar to the Tampa Bay Lightning a couple years ago, and eventually it's going to work. But to me, it's bordering on the definition of insanity, where it's been 6 seasons, 6 go-round with these guys, and they can't figure it out. What leads Shanahan to believe that it's finally going to turn around, I guess, under Craig Berube?
Well, what's really fascinating, it's funny, I've talked to Shanahan about this and Austin Matthews about this, and I see this parallel with the Red Wings of the 1990s. And it was Austin Matthews, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, he brought it up to me, and he said, look at Washington and Detroit. So the Capitals took 13 seasons to finally break through and win one under Alex Ovechkin. They had never even escaped the second round. The Red Wings were perennial losers. People forget Steve Yzerman was carrying around almost a choker reputation. The Wings lost upset by San Jose in round 1, 94, lost in the final, 95, won 62 games. They lost in 96. They couldn't break through. So on one hand, you could say, okay, what Matthews told me, what Shanahan is thinking is, hey, these teams broke through. But the ironic thing is, what it took for Detroit to break through was to trade for Brendan Shanahan. They had to break up a core piece and trade away one of their best prospects, which was Keith Primo, to get Shanahan. So they actually did the opposite, and that was a key part of them breaking through in the 90s. So I'm kind of like, does Shanahan remember this? That he was the one that helped them get over the hump because they weren't stubborn and they were willing to take apart key pieces. They also traded away Paul Coffey in that deal. He had won the Norris with them in 95. So you have to be willing to make at least some tweaks, I think, to that core.
I agree. And it really is bizarre because I loved Brendan Shanahan as a player, but it would be cool to have a sit down one day or to hear from him publicly as to his vision, what he truly saw with this Maple Leafs team. But you're so right. That's the perception. And that's what some people have told me. He thinks this is the Detroit Red Wings 2.0, but it's not. I think if you're comparing Mitch Marner and others to certain legends on Detroit, you're sadly mistaken. And that's me not just pinpointing Marner. Like, I think you put Nylander in that conversation, you put John Tavares in that conversation. I don't think I can draw like a correlation or parallels. Like, I think he is sadly mistaken if he thinks this is Detroit. But I think you bring up an excellent point too, that for so many years it never worked for Stevie Y, and then he finally broke through. But I think you look at the roster and how they were constructed, a lot different. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.